Hi, my name is Kira, and I'm an OpenSciEd teacher and facilitator. And today I'm going to go over lesson 4 of the Light and Matter unit with you. This is a one-day lesson, so it's pretty short, but it is chock full of information that's going to help us continue to build understanding about our phenomenon. So let's get started. In lesson 3, we figured out that glass transmits the most light through it. A regular mirror reflects the most light but doesn't transmit any. And the one-way mirror material allows some of the light to transmit through it and some light to reflect off of it. And in fact, it was almost equal amounts. So in this lesson, we are wondering, how do similar amounts of light transmit through and reflect off of that one-way mirror material? So this lesson, as I mentioned, is a one-day lesson. It is an investigation lesson. It's not hands-on, but it is an investigation lesson. It takes about 20 minutes for materials prep. There are no devices necessary or related videos for this particular lesson. We begin lesson 4 by reviewing the data from our measuring light investigation in lesson 3 and discussing the possible explanations for why we saw the things we did. So we're kind of brainstorming some ideas as to why that one-way material works the way that it does. And then we are going to follow a closed reading protocol about one-way mirrors and how they are constructed so that we can figure out how they compare to regular mirrors and glass. And then we will facilitate a consensus discussion, and we're going to model, like at a microscopic level, the structures that are in each of these materials, glass, mirrors, and the one-way mirror material. And then we are going to navigate by celebrating what we figured out. This is a big idea. This seems like a really important thing, but we also want to figure out how that structure is interacting with light a little bit more closely. So what we figure out is that regular mirrors have a thick layer of silver and a layer of paint behind that layer of silver, which is not allowing any light to transmit through it, but in fact is letting it reflect off of it. And one-way mirrors have a thin layer of silver that's mixed with plastic, and that creates a film that's placed on top of glass. And that lets a part of the light reflect, and then almost the same amount of light transmit through that material. And we figured out that a material can have different structures, even at like a micro scale, that causes different amounts of light to transmit through or reflect off of it. So our key moments. Part 2 is the big learn here, where we are figuring out the structure of each of these materials. So we're going to follow a closed reading protocol for an article about how one-way mirrors are made. We encounter some new words, and those words are things like transparent, opaque, impurities, silvering, and we're going to talk through their meanings as we follow this protocol. And then we're going to develop a model to show how light and the materials interact with each other. And we're going to use a 10 light ray model to do this. So we're going to show what happens to 10 light rays that are directed toward this material, how many are going to reflect, how many are going to transmit. We're going to facilitate a consensus discussion, and we're going to model that microscale. So we're going to not just model the light rays, but we're also going to include the structures that cause the light rays to reflect or transmit. And so we will talk about the structures at the microscopic level, so impurities in glass and how those can cause light to reflect off of or prevent light from transmitting through. And then we're going to co-construct that model to show these interactions. So you'll see kind of an example of that here in this circle where we show the silvering and the glass layer and how that causes the light to reflect or to transmit in certain locations. And from here, we are celebrating. We've figured out a lot already about how this one-way mirror film functions. We do still have some questions about why our phenomenon is happening the way that it does. We wonder how the structures of the one-way mirror interacts with the light to cause the phenomenon of the student seeing himself and the teacher seeing the student. For this particular lesson, it may be beneficial for you to check in with your language arts teacher about how they have their students use a closed reading strategy. It may be slightly different than what is in our slides protocol. So if the protocol is a little bit different, you may want to adjust the slides to reflect this, just so that we keep some coherence across the curricular areas as well. The terms transparent and opaque are words that we encounter during the reading. We don't necessarily have to add those as words we earn. However, if your students continue to utilize those words, they may become words that they earn beyond this lesson. So it's up to you how much you want to reinforce those words. You can definitely do without, but they are words we encounter in this lesson that could become words that we earn. We don't have any words that we earn that we're adding to our word wall. Again, we're adding the words like silvering, transparent, opaque. Impurities was another one that my students struggled with a little bit. So those are all words that we encounter in this reading. Poster management wise, we will refer back to our hybrid model and use that to help us create this new 10 light ray model in part 3. And then we will also update our science ideas chart and refer back to that as well. All right. So lesson 4, like I said, was a nice short one, but it's chock full of really heavy information. So I hope that your students are excited to learn how this one-way mirror material is made and how the light interacts with it. I'm looking forward to working you through lesson 5 in the future. Good luck to you.